As we remember Yogi Berra, one of the things that we remember are the unique bonds that he formed with so many players and managers, folks in pinstripes. You look at some of the images of he and Joe Torre, spring training and in games. And again, Joe Torre releasing this statement today about the passing of Yogi Berra. As he said, we have lost Yogi, but we will always have what he left for us. The memories of a lifetime filled with greatness, humility, integrity, and a whole bunch of smiles. He was a lovable friend. And I'm sure those sentiments echoed by the current manager of the Yankees, Joe Girardi, as well. Joe joins us now from Toronto. And Joe, really is a bittersweet day because we mourn the passing of this great legend, but we also celebrate so many great moments that Yogi gave us.
Yeah, he really did, and I found out late last night, and it hurts because he meant so much to all of us. And when I think of Yogi, I think of a godly man who, in spring training, when we had those 1 o'clock Saturday games, he would say, I might have to cut out a little early. I got to make mass. I think of a great husband, a great father who always put his family first. He served our country, and he had a real passion for the game. But to me, when I think of Yogi, I think of probably the most humble man I ever met who has accomplished so much and made everyone around him better and happier.
Joe, I'm glad you mentioned spring training because it really seems like in Tampa, Yogi was in his element. He loved being around the players. I want to throw a hypothetical at you. Say you were in your office talking with either some players or coaches, just talking baseball. Suddenly, Yogi walks in the room. How does the dynamic change?
Well, I mean, Yogi walks in and he just makes everyone feel comfortable. But I think I remember seeing Yogi walk in for the first time, and I was in awe, thinking, man, I can't believe I'm in the room with this man, this great Yankee player, a superstar, all the World Series. But he just made everyone feel comfortable. And Yogi would talk baseball. I'd always kid with him. I'd see him on the treadmill in the mornings, and I would say, you got 2 weeks before we give you an at-bat. We got to get your legs in shape. But that was Yogi. I mean, you never knew who he was and what he had accomplished just because of the way he acted.
Yeah, Joe, David Cohn, thanks again for coming on. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
July 18th, 1999, Yogi Berra walks out to catch Don Larsen's first pitch before the game, and you hand him your glove. And you guys had kind of a funny exchange there. And I was wondering if you could share with us whatever you could remember from that particular exchange. It seems like Yogi almost blessed the glove. He took your glove, caught the first pitch, and handed it back to you, and it was very demonstrative. And I was wondering if you could tell us anything you remember about that.
Well, what I remember about that day is, how excited we were that he was back. But most importantly, I told him, Yogi put a blessing on my glove. To think that, I had the privilege of walking in the same clubhouse that Yogi walked in, walking in the same dirt that Yogi had walked in. And I said, Yogi, just put a blessing on this glove. And I joked with him a little bit about, we had this trainer's glove, this little glove, the gloves that they used to use. And I said, do you want me to get the little glove? And he said, no, let me have your big glove. I'm not ready for that.
That's a great memory. I also want to ask you about that day. And we've sort of discussed it, the fact that number 8 was on the field. You caught 88 pitches from David Cohn. Perfect game. Did that dawn on you at the time, or the symmetry of it?
Oh, it sure did. I mean, that Don Larsen was in the house, too, who had thrown a perfect game to Yogi. And I just thought it was so fitting. A man that had meant so much to this organization, meant so much to so many people. He was there, and his presence was there, and I think people really felt it, and it was just so great to have him back.
We have a picture of you. We've talked about spring training and Yogi and what he meant to everybody, a picture of you and he at spring training, and it's you catching, well, he's standing there as well. And I wonder, what sort of catching knowledge did he impart on you?
He talked a lot about throwing to the bases, about how to get hitters out. I mean, he gave us a ton of knowledge about blocking balls, about protecting your fingers, because back then the gloves weren't as easy to catch with as they are today, and how they had to catch two-handed, and he always talked about that. But he talked a lot of strategy, and Yogi had players that he really pulled for, and that he liked, young, exciting players that were coming up. He really pulled for them. And I loved just to listen to what he had to say about the game, and to talk about old stories. But just his knowledge and his presence was important to the organization.
Joe, there are so many numbers about Yogi that we could throw out there. Statistics from the World Series, over 350 home runs in his career, over 1,400 runs batted in. But I wanted to ask you about this fact. Per 100 at-bats in his career, he averaged fewer than 6 strikeouts. How hard is that to do, and how the heck did he do it?
I don't know how he did it because it doesn't happen today. You see it happen every once in a while. You know, Pujols might have struck out 50 times the course of one season. And the interesting thing is they said he swung at everything. And usually guys that are extremely aggressive and swing at everything strike out a lot. But Yogi obviously had great hand-eye coordination, used a big bat, and he found the barrel a lot of times, I can tell you that.
You know, I want to ask you this, Joe, because you were a blue-collar guy. You worked hard at the game to be as successful as you were. You do that now as a manager. How much do you appreciate the story of Yogi Berra coming from the Hill in St. Louis, wanted to sign with the Cardinals? They didn't want to give him the signing bonus that he wanted. He just kept working hard, worked his way through his naval service, back to being a baseball player, and became one of the greatest players that ever lived.
Well, I think it's amazing when you talk about what Yogi did, because you think about how he quit school because his family needed money, and he went to work in 8th grade. And he went into the Navy. I think the Yankees signed him for a few $100s, and they were surprised when they saw him how little he was. And he turned out to be one of the best players that ever played the game. And that's all through hard work, because you look at Yogi. I mean, Yogi wasn't a big man, and to have the power and the strength that he had, I mean, he had to work his tail end off, and to have to go into the Navy and take a couple of years off and to be able to come back and be successful. It just shows you, that he had a passion and he had a dream, and he was going to accomplish that dream, and nothing was going to stand in his way.
The one thing I think, before we let you go, Joe, that really stands out as well on this program as we talk about Yogi is that it was always about the team and team first. You try and get him to talk about himself. It was a difficult thing to do. It was all about, at the time when he served his country, about the U.S. and serving his country and the greatness of America. And then as a baseball player, all about the Yankees and his teammates and not about himself.
Well, I think when you think about what a Yankee means, all you have to do is think about what Yogi did. The type of player he was, the type of person he was, how he represented the organization, how he played the game. There was no selfishness in him. He did whatever it took to be successful. That's a Yankee, and Yogi epitomized that. And I think Yogi epitomizes what a man is supposed to be in this life. And I am so grateful that I got a chance to know him, to spend so much time with him, and we're all going to miss him.
Yeah, Joe, great way to encapsulate exactly who Yogi Berra is. We know you have a ball game to get ready for. We thank you for joining us on the program.
Thanks, guys.